my name is Casey Teske. Heather, who is the main instructor, I think, for this class, is a friend of mine. I've known her for a long time, and she wrote me into doing this and talking to you guys about my career path and what I've done, and answer questions about different options and whatnot that you all might have. So this is a kind of a format she gave us. It'll look very similar to Joe's, but we each gave it our own little flavor. But what you can see is there's a lot of things that I'm interested in. I like to read, I like to travel, I like to be outdoors. I love cooking, I love visiting with people. And so I think that's part of the reason that I really like fire. So I'll tell you about how I got started here in a little bit, but who I am right now is I work at the National Interagency Fire Center in Boise, Idaho for the Fish and Wildlife Service as a fire management analyst. And I'll talk about that, but it combines technology plus on the ground experience. So all the stuff that we've been talking about, and I'll be able to answer some of your questions about what you guys are trying to do, I think. So I also help teach fire modeling computer courses down in Arizona at the National Fire Training Center, NAFRI. I help with staff rides where we do leadership training, and they're called staff rides anyway. We just visit different places and talk about leadership skills and characteristics and why decisions were made the way they were and stuff like that, and related to current day topics. I'm a coach. I do guest lecturing a lot for Heather. And then, of course, I'm somebody's sister, somebody's daughter, and my brother has a little kid, so now I'm an aunt. So I actually went to school at U of I, and I got my master's there in forestry because my undergrad did not get me very far in fire, and I wanted to be able to have a career out of it because I liked it so much. So we'll talk about that. I ended up in Missoula getting another forestry degree, and these four-letter words down below are fire qualifications that I have. So a long-term analyst, a fire effects monitor, a field observer, a firing boss. There's a bunch more I didn't want to list, but those are probably some of the more interesting ones that I hold, and we can talk about that too. So with that, let's see if this, okay, so I got started. This is not where I got started, but it was a picture showing what kind of got me started. I was about 4 years old watching helicopters dip out of a tank in front of our house, and everything around us was on fire. And so that was pretty exciting. And anytime there were helicopters after that, I thought that this is what they did, and I thought this was normal, and it wasn't. And then 1988 happened, and lots of people that my parents knew were doing wildfires in Yellowstone. And then we went to Yellowstone. We'd been there before, and then we went there after, and then we went there again, and I could see the change from the fires. And so like all these weird experiences combined got me thinking maybe that was a good way to pay for college. And I grew up in a small town where a lot of people either went into gold mining or went into firefighting. And so I didn't want to do gold mining, so I went to firefighting. So that was the start of it. And I can definitely say that those few things of watching everybody I knew do that and then seeing the helicopters really got me into it. So, but I thought it was just going to be a way to pay for college. So what happened next? Well, I did start with the BLM, which was the agency that was in the town that I grew up in. And I did it in the summers to pay for college. So I started there as a dispatcher and a fire engine person. And then I moved on and went into hot shots, which are 20-person hand crews. They really get into the crazy parts of the fire and do a lot of the hard work. I got some more qualifications there. RXCM is a prescribed fire crew member, and then FALR A means I learned how to use a chainsaw. So some of the basic stuff kind of early in my career. As I was moving through, it ended up, I needed some credits to graduate from college because they miscounted my credits. And so I went to work at the fire lab in Missoula, and I was able to do the science side of things with my chemistry degree. And so I did a lot of smoke work. And then I was actually hired on to do GIS, which is mapping and analysis. And so that was the main part of my job there. But I ended up getting credit for those so I could finish my degree and move on. And at that point, I was hired on as not an apprentice, as a co-op student. I don't know the proper term anymore, but it's basically a way where you get hired on by the agency and then they help you pay for college, and you get converted to a permanent employee at the end of it. So I went back for my master's degree in forestry so that I could get this career in fire that I've been deciding that I wanted, because chemistry wasn't for me. So my first summer after getting my first degree, I worked in Helena, Montana, and I got to do all sorts of different things, including working with Helitac and working with the tankers at the tanker bases. So those airplanes that drop the red retardant on fires. And I worked up in my qualifications as well. So I did that and a bunch of field work throughout the summers, and ended up getting my degree in forestry resources from U of I. And then I went to work doing all sorts of weird stuff. A lot of it was fuels, which is basically the vegetation that burns. I also did some more hot shotting and fire use, which is the sciencey side of things, and got some more qualifications. And I really like that fire use side. So I kind of stuck with that for a while and really started going into integration of technology and applications in the field because of that job. So I ended up at a place called the Fire Center in Missoula, and was able to do a lot of GIS and remote sensing work, which is basically what most of my master's degree was. And while I was working there, I was able to complete a PhD as well. So I was one of the founding members of the Student Association of Fire Ecology there. And then I worked a lot with active fire research. Since I had an operational background, I could go out with scientists who didn't understand fire and make sure they were safe in the fire environment. I worked a lot with workforce development at the college, so helping people who didn't know how to get into a career or what they wanted to do once they were kind of in fire. I helped them navigate their way. And then I decided I needed a change from Missoula, so I started doing risk assessments at Colorado State for Air Force bases. I loved the idea of the job. I didn't really love the job, so I moved on pretty quick to the Grand Canyon as the fire ecologist for the park, continued working on qualifications there, became a UAS pilot, so I was able to fly small unmanned uncrewed craft, drones basically, on fires for monitoring. So I did that for the park for a while. And then I moved on to a nonprofit called Tall Timbers, where I was a geospatial fire ecologist, and I basically help map fires across the Southeast using satellite data and remotely sensed technology. So I saw this job at the Fish and Wildlife Service, so I decided to put in for it, and I came back west. I liked my job in Florida, but I did not love the hot, humid summers. I'm from the West, so it was a little bit tough for me to take. So came back west. Through all of these boxes and experiences, I've basically worked everywhere in the West. I have been stationed in all states west of the Mississippi, basically, and gotten to do cool things. So some of the pictures you see is me up in you don't see me, but that top picture is doing active fire research. So we had a whole bunch of thermal cameras and equipment and drones, and I was up in a boom lift taking thermal infrared videography of the fires so we could see what was happening. The second picture down there, me pointing at maps showing where probability of fire traveling and briefing incident management teams. Some of the fun part of that was that Bigfoot came to visit us. So there's a wacky picture of me hanging out with Bigfoot on one of the fires. And then that bottom picture is me getting ready to launch a drone on a fire in Arizona. So I get to do all sorts of cool stuff with this job and absolutely love that. And it ties in with travel and exploration and reading and all that fun stuff that I like to do on the side too. So what I love about it is the travel and the people and the challenge and just being able to be outside. Again, that ties into my personality of the things I like. Some of my favorite fires were on the Grand Canyon. It was a super science-driven fire management program at the time, and I really enjoyed being a part of that. So that's one of the pictures up there on the top left. The picture below that is following a big fire on the Grand Canyon. You start to see a lot of regeneration and rebirth, and I think people see fire as big and scary, but it can actually be super beneficial, but that doesn't make the news as much. So then those pictures in the middle, the upper left middle picture is at Tall Timbers. We're burning grasses across water on a pond in Florida. Yes, you can get fire to burn on top of water. And we were following that with drones and thermal infrared, so that was exciting. We also taught private landowners how to burn, so that's us working with the private landowner in that upper right center picture there. He's in the red. So we enabled private landowners to put fire on the ground to help maintain T&E species and some of their private property and interests that they had. The bottom right is fire of Okefenokee. I got to fly the entire fire. It took about 4 hours and we had to stop 2 or 3 times, but we mapped the whole thing with thermal infrared, and that was a pretty exciting thing and something that you don't get to do every day. So I thought that was cool. Seeing friends and people that you've known for 20 years and just running into them in weird places on top of mountains. So that's me and my friend Jen on top of a mountain in California after Bigfoot visited me. So doing all sorts of fun stuff like that. And then of course, mapping and all the creative and analytics side of that is awesome, and being able to work with land managers and help them make decisions. So that's some of the awesome parts about the job that I like. Lots of challenges, personality challenges, budget challenges, timing and weather challenges of getting projects off the ground, lack of people, or people are on time off, or different things like that. So there's all sorts of challenges. I don't want to focus on this one because I think the opportunities are more fun, but there's definitely challenges like with any job. But yeah, so I'm not going to focus on that slide too much. What I do want to help you all with is how to be successful. What do you need to know? So KSAs, if you don't know, stands for knowledge, skills, and abilities, but we also think about it as attitudes, because sometimes attitudes are more important than your ability. So to do a lot of the stuff on the fuel side of fire, which has to do with fire ecology, fire behavior, fire effects, planning, and all that kind of stuff, the knowledge side of things is you should understand fire behavior. So take classes that help you with that, understand fire effects, understand how fuels, weather, and topography interact with each other. Any of the ecology classes, especially fire ecology classes and landscape ecology kind of courses, can help with that. Understand what monitoring is and how to use it to enhance your work. Adaptive management, how do you consistently work towards something and retool on the fly based on what you know and keep working towards that end point. Understanding hazard and risk is becoming more and more important. One of my big things is that data is very important. It interacts with all the systems. It helps you with storytelling, successes, failures, all the above. It can really help paint a picture of how things are working or not working. And a lot of times it's tied to budget. So understanding data and how it interacts with all the different pieces and parts of fire is pretty important. The different types of planning frameworks and like in ecology, the RAD frameworks that you have to deal with as we're moving into unknown futures are very important. Policies, understanding NEPA, and then understanding how things interact, that cross-disciplinary side of things. I think that's super important for being successful in fuels. So you can't just be a fire engine person. You have to broaden your horizons. You have to go onto the ecology side. You have to work with biologists. You have to work with foresters. You have to know how to talk to people. And one of the skills that I didn't put on here, so we're going off to the skills thing, but I mean, public speaking, I think I put it in there, but I think it should be at the top because you're going to end up talking to a lot of people. Being organized, being able to think critically and solve problems is super useful for fuels and planning in this arena. Teamwork and collaboration, computer skills, especially if you have advanced computer skills beyond just things like Excel and WordPerfect and stuff like that. It's going to be super helpful. So GIS, remote sensing, fire modeling, LiDAR, any of those kinds of things are going to be really, really helpful for people. being able to multitask and reprioritize on the fly. I don't know how many times we get calls in my office that ask us for information by 2 p.m. And so you have to drop everything and get the information and then go back to what you're doing. So multitasking and reprioritizing on the fly, connecting dots, you're going to get a lot of information thrown at you, but being able to problem solve and think critically and connect dots that might not be explicit is super important. And then in our job, fitness is definitely important. So, and that's physical and mental, right? So know who you are, know when you need a break, and know that being physically fit helps that mental side of things. The attitudes, I think it's super important to have a good attitude and to laugh at things, laugh at yourself, laugh with people, not at people, but being tenacious and just digging in when you need to, be curious, but also patient. Some of these things take a long time. Others, you have to get it done right now and then just fix it on the back end. We think that there's a lot of leadership and endurance qualities that make some of these jobs interesting, I guess, because nothing is like a light switch. It takes a long time for things to happen. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3, prescribed fires or whatever to actually see the right change on the landscape that you're shooting for before you can actually start to do stuff. So having patience, endurance, and then being a leader about that. So you're in it for the long haul. In terms of how some of those same things have served me in life, well, I've gotten lots of jobs because of the training I've gotten working at different jobs. So I got a risk analysis job because I knew how to do GIS and remote sensing, which I was trained in some of that in previous jobs. Understanding things like defensible space and how to, maybe you want to go be a private contractor and help people with thinning or planning around their houses to be fire resilient. So some of those kinds of things have been super helpful for me. Another big one that everybody always laughs about, but I am a good navigator because I pay attention to what's out there. And you learn that being in fire or in natural resources in general. Definitely skills that have helped have been the technical side of things have been super awesome for me, both in getting me professional jobs as well as, some of the things that I want to do on the side. If I'm trying to, figure out a trip I want to do, I understand how to make a map and stuff like that. So definitely all the skills that are in there are useful. And then again, all those same attitudes that I talked about, I think that those are important in real life as well. So how do you get a career in here in fire and fuels and anything? I think a good thing to think about is what are you interested in and what are you passionate about and where do you think you want to live or work? What kinds of jobs are you interested in? What types of things do you like to do on the side? And if you can figure out how to tie all those things together, that's a huge thing. But if you can figure out what you want to do for the most part, and then try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. How do you find options that overlap with or enable you to pursue career interests that align with your passions? So maybe you like to kayak. So you definitely don't want to be in the Midwest where they might not have a lot of good kayaking if you're a whitewater kayaker. So maybe your days off, that would be pretty hard to do. So finding a job in the Rockies might be easier for you. So those kinds of things, that's what I mean about overlapping. Make connections, ask questions. You have Joe and Heather as resources. Now you have me. You're going to have all the other people that present to you this semester. So ask questions and reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you, especially early in your career or job hunts or whatever. Take the opportunities that fall into your lap. As you get older and start to have families and pets and kids and things like that, it might be harder. I'm not saying it will be, but it may be harder to just pick up and go and do a different job or pick up and go away for 3 months on a detail or whatever. So if you have those opportunities and are able to get up and go and do things, you should try it. It's a great way to see if you like things. It puts experience on your resume and it can help you make decisions later on. If you know what you want to do, then work backwards from that. What do you need to do to qualify for that job? And then what are you missing to make sure that you are qualified, right? So work backwards and have a plan. I always say don't burn your bridges. Most of the time, especially in fire, it's a super small circle. And so you don't want to, bad talk anybody or just be a bad worker or anything like that, because it'll follow you around and you're going to end up with those same people at some other point down the road, and it could be uncomfortable. Lead by example, try new things, don't stay in one place. Those are my opinions, but I think those are super useful for getting any kinds of career, but definitely in natural resources. And then in this field, you can't work alone. I had a forestry guy tell me one time, if you want to work alone and not talk to people, go to engineering, because it's easier to be a lone wolf in that field than it is in forestry and natural resources and fire and stuff like that. You're always talking to other disciplines, to the public, to your teams, to interdisciplinary teams, whatever it is. So be able to collaborate and network, keep that good reputation. Don't forget to take time for yourself. Try new things and, pass on your enthusiasm and knowledge, because there's always people under you that are looking up to you. So that's what I have, like, in a nutshell. I wanted to make it quick so that you guys could have time for questions. So